Imagine you were given a lottery ticket at birth, and against all odds, you actually won. Just being alive right now means you beat a 1 in a trillion medical probability. You are, quite literally, a statistical miracle. Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving deep into the ultimate engine behind extraordinary achievements in the cold, hard mathematics of success. How does some people experience years of absolute, soul-crushing failure only to seemingly build a global empire overnight? Let's break down the mechanics.
Okay, so let's dive right into this by asking a pretty uncomfortable question. Why, after winning that 1 in a trillion lottery just to be born, do we suddenly let society convince us to lower our expectations the older we get? The moment we reach a certain age, society starts whispering in our ear, hey, be realistic, lower your goals. And the tragic part? Most of us actually listen. This brilliantly illustrates the trap. When we're kids, we have the sheer audacity to dream of being an astronaut or, an NBA athlete. We start out with the fierce confidence of a Jeff Bezos sitting in his cramped, ugly, brick-walled first office with that terrible spray-painted banner, genuinely believing he's building an empire, or the sheer intensity of a young Kanye West. But eventually we trade that fierce self-belief for society's safe, boring, realistic standards of adulthood.
Chapter 1: The Brick Wall in the Mind.
To understand how to break out of this trap, we first have to examine the psychological brick walls we unconsciously build for ourselves. Now, what's really fascinating here is that before May 6, 1954, the global scientific and medical community stood firmly behind a single claim. They believed a human running a 4-minute mile was an absolute biological physical impossibility.
The collective human psyche had built this massive wall. Highly educated experts and scientists genuinely believed your heart would literally explode or your lungs would collapse before you ever crossed that finish line. The barrier was so deeply ingrained in everyone's heads that runners would subconsciously hold themselves back from reaching their full potential.
Let's look at how this plays out, because it's wild. For 9 long years, the world record was absolutely stuck. Nobody could get past it. Then, Roger Bannister, a medical student who just outright refused to accept the consensus, broke the record. And here is the mind-blowing part. Just 2 months later, 22 other people suddenly broke it too. The moment one single person proved it could be done, the floodgates completely opened.
So, the absolutely crucial takeaway here is that the barrier was never physical. It was entirely in their minds. A limit isn't a brick wall telling you to stop. It's just a marker indicating it's time to shift into the next gear. Bannister didn't just break a track record. He shattered a collective psychological delusion.
Chapter 2: Redlining in First Gear.
This brings us to the actual mechanics of pushing those limits, and why most people's engines just burn out when they try. When most people decide to change their lives, they usually rely purely on willpower. But willpower is a finite resource. It operates exactly like your smartphone battery, slowly draining throughout the day. What you actually need is a sustainable system based on progressive overload.
Think about it like this. If you decide to suddenly study or write code for 12 hours straight on day 1, you're redlining a car engine while keeping it in first gear. The engine screams, overheats, and completely burns out. But if you systematically push your limits, say, deeply focusing for exactly 1 hour today and then 1 hour and 5 minutes tomorrow, you completely trick your brain's natural laziness. Just 5 extra minutes. It's small enough to prevent panic, but over time, it pushes your boundaries by miles.
Chapter 3: Bill Gates in the Math of Luck.
So what happens when you take that compounding system of effort and apply it over a long period of time, like a decade? We often look at Bill Gates and scream, oh, it's just pure luck. Yes, he was born into an upper-middle-class family and had incredibly rare access to a computer in 1968. But screaming luck completely ignores the sheer mathematical weight of the 10,000 hours he spent obsessed with programming as a teenager. Just look at his level of obsession. From age 20 to 30, Bill Gates took 0 weekends off, 0 days of vacation. He practically lived in the office, working up to 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, just completely immersing himself in the work.
Furthermore, even with his massive head start and undeniable luck, people conveniently overlook the fact that Microsoft actually lost money for its first 5 years of existence. 5 years! The success was absolutely not overnight.
Okay, let's dive into this list of breaks he had. Yes, Gates got to use the Lakeside Terminal in 8th grade. Yes, he checked code on weekends. And yes, he literally snuck out of his house at 3 a.m. to use free computers at a medical center. But those lucky breaks were just sparks.
They were igniters hitting the massive, massive fuel of his relentless mathematical preparation.
Success is not a straight linear path. We really like to think life moves in a straight line, but it's actually driven by randomness and compound interest. If you execute ruthlessly on a single point for a decade, like Gates did with programming, it becomes statistically and mathematically impossible for you not to get lucky at least once in your lifetime.
Chapter 4, Strategic Delusion, Your Guardian Angel.
To survive a grueling decade of relentless execution without quitting, you need a very specific, heavily misunderstood psychological tool. Director Quentin Tarantino spent 8 long years in the film industry with absolutely nothing working out. Logically speaking, quitting after year 4 or 5 would have been the smart, rational decision, but he kept going.
It really all comes down to this 4-step formula for inevitability. 1. Hold one dream. 2. Practice 10 years of immense patience. 3. Never change direction. And 4. Add a heavy dose of delusion. See, when you're a nobody, believing you're destined to be the best in the world is technically delusional. But that delusion, that is exactly what keeps you on the field long enough for the math of success to finally work in your favor.
And this brings us to a final, incredibly powerful thought to leave you with today. Delusional thinking is a guardian that protects you until talent develops. So I ask you, is being strategically delusional really a weakness? Or is it actually your ultimate shield against a society that is constantly begging you to just be average? What is your 4-minute mile, and are you willing to be just delusional enough to break it?